I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Julie, may we have a roll call, please?
Christine Agron.
Here.
Juan Bouquet.
Here.
Brian Carso.
Here.
Jessica Decker.
Here.
Zach Fisher.
Here.
Corey Homer.
Here.
Pam Leffing. Felicia Sheehan.
Here.
She's on mute. I know she's on mute. And Felicia.
Here.
And there's
Here. Thank you. Christine, would you like to read the mission statement, please?
Certainly. Delaware Valley School District, in partnership with our community, stands committed to maximizing student potential, fostering lifelong learning, and promoting responsible citizenship.
Thank you. I would like to announce that we did have an executive session on February 16th after the work session to discuss personnel and student issues. And for the public watching the meeting tonight on YouTube, if you have any comments, please direct them to schoolboard@dvsd.org, and Jessica is monitoring that for any questions. Let's start with our presentations. First, we'll go to Kylie.
Hello. Student leaders are holding March Madness this week with events every day after school. Monday, volleyball tournament hosted by boys volleyball. Tuesday, 3-on-3 basketball hosted by the junior class. Wednesday, movie day hosted by the sophomore class. Thursday, dodgeball tournament hosted by the senior class. And Friday, spikeball hosted by SAC.
The Warrior Experience podcast has continued to have great success. They now have 4 episodes with lots of positive feedback from staff, community, and students in school and on social media. We have gotten over 300 views.
On February 19th, the Student Council held their semi-formal dance. A lot of hard work was put in to make sure students had the best time. Some of the proceeds that were gained from this dance are going to support the natural disaster in Turkey to help them during this devastation of an earthquake.
In addition to the semi-formal dance, the Student Council held their annual carnation sales. This year, students bought several flowers, causing all of the carnations to be sold out, and we may have the ability to donate some of our proceeds to the relief funds for Turkey as well.
Cinderella's Closet is a free event happening March 10th through March 12th, giving the opportunity to borrow a dress or suit for prom. Students, teachers, and the community are allowed to donate dresses, suits, and shoes. Anyone is allowed to attend this event.
Student Athlete Advisory Committee is selling Morgan's Messages t-shirts for $15 and long sleeves for $20. Morgan's Message originated from the collegiate level girls lacrosse player from Duke who tore her ACL, causing her to begin her battle with her mental health. Morgan struggled with this abrupt change because she felt like she had lost control within her life. SAC is promoting Morgan's Message, which is the importance of student athletes taking care of their mental health.
Delaware Valley is sending 18 Odyssey of the Mind teams to regional this weekend. We wish them luck and hope they have great success.
High school boys basketball has advanced to districts, and they are starting to play their playoff games this week. Good luck, boys.
Swim and Dive have concluded their regular season and are now going to districts.
Peace study classes are learning about advocacy, and high school teacher Mr. Barnett has not only encouraged his students, but also his fellow teachers to hand out stickers throughout the school day to put a smile on students' faces.
The Science Department is spreading awareness about the devastation from the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. Within their classes, they are asking for donations, no matter how big or small.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Would the board like to make any comments on what's going on here at DV? There's a lot going on.
Always lots going on.
So good luck to all those in districts. Odyssey of the Mind is on their way this weekend.
Saturday regionals. Yeah.
Where's that?
Usually Pocono Mountain.
Usually at West. Regionals is usually at West.
Thank you, ladies. You can excuse yourselves anytime you like.
Thank you.
We now have a presentation that is up on the board here by Stephanie Osborne and Monica Gilroy. Now, if you folks would like to come over here, there's one chair here. We can pull a couple of chairs in from over there. If you're out in front, or pull to the side.
So hi, my name is Stephanie Osborne. I'm one of the reading specialists at Shahola Elementary School.
And I'm Monica Gilroy, also a reading specialist at Shahola Elementary School.
We just wanted to say thank you for having us tonight. Tonight we're going to discuss Orton Gillingham at Delaware Valley, kind of how it's evolved over time.
DVOG was born out of concerns parents had across the state of Pennsylvania
about their children who had been diagnosed with dyslexia and were struggling with reading. They were concerned that their children were not receiving the help that they needed from the schools. So these parents were advocating for their children, and in 2014, the Pennsylvania Department of Education responded by launching what was called the Dyslexia Screening and Early Literacy Intervention Pilot. The purpose of this pilot was to identify children at risk and create programs in the Pennsylvania schools that would address the needs of students diagnosed with dyslexia and other reading disabilities. Dr. Peg Schaefer, always a strong advocate for our students, applied to participate in this pilot. The process for this application was very involved. It involved school visits, interviews, and it had very specific criteria that our district had to adhere to. And the criteria included universal screening of students, full-day kindergarten, and a commitment by the district to continue collecting data for the duration of the pilot, which lasted 4 years. 8 school districts in the state of Pennsylvania were selected to participate in this pilot, and Delaware Valley was very fortunate to be one of those schools. It was basically changed the course of how we teach reading in our district. So, once we were officially part of the pilot, the first step was professional development. All kindergarten teachers received letters training. Letters training is basically teaching the science of reading. At the time, I was a kindergarten teacher and was in awe of what I didn't know and what I learned about how we as humans actually acquire the skill of reading. I'm very happy to know that our district still supports professional development and teachers are still receiving this training, so it's extremely effective. In addition to training kindergarten teachers, a group of teachers from our school district was selected to participate in the pilot by going through some intensive training to become interventionists. I was fortunate to be one of the original participants. This initial group of teachers went through extensive training through the Compass Reading Center, which was based out of Allentown area. The training included comprehensive Orton-Gillingham coursework, lectures, papers, observations, and exams that needed to be passed for certification. The goal was and continues to be providing intensive interventions to students most at risk for dyslexia or other reading disabilities. We came to understand that our brains are not all wired the same way. I remember through several of the trainings they would tell us that we were becoming brain surgeons because through our intensive intervention we were changing how the brain worked. So we literally were helping these students in ways that no one else was doing. So Stephanie's going to talk a little bit more about.
So this kind of brings us to what is Orton-Gillingham and structured literacy. So over the years, you've probably seen different approaches come and go. Balanced literacy versus structured literacy. Orton-Gillingham and research has shown that structured literacy actually benefits students. We're teaching them the science of reading. We're teaching them the whys behind the spelling patterns and spelling rules. But what Orton-Gillingham does is it breaks down reading instruction into smaller skill sets. Students are learning about letters, then they're learning about sounds, sound symbol correspondence, then we're teaching them about different syllable types, and later adding in morphology, we're teaching them about prefixes, suffixes, how that impacts word meaning, and then we're later applying that to words and sentences and then spelling, and later on we're expanding that into real reading, where students are taking the skills they've learned from Orton-Gillingham and applying it to reading. They're practicing comprehension, they're making meaning, and the best part is that Orton-Gillingham is a cumulative approach, so they're not just learning new skills, they're always spiraling back to old skills. We're never just done. We're always reviewing and spiraling to build until it just clicks for them. There are many benefits of structured literacy in Orton-Gillingham. First off, all of our students are receiving explicit reading instruction, especially at the Tier 1 level, not even just in reading groups. Additionally, we're building a strong foundation for them. I think growing up often a lot of us learned to read, we learned how to spell, but when I was an adult going through the Compass training, I learned so many rules about reading that I didn't know certain rules about like soft C or hard C that I learned. And so now we give our kids the opportunity to learn these rules. They're taking ownership over their learning and their reading. Additionally, Orton-Gillingham is multisensory based. So not only is this beneficial to multiple learner types, like visual learners, kinesthetic, auditory learners, but it also gives them the chance to use multiple senses, because the more senses we use, the more paths we make to our long-term memory, and those skills are being retained. So this is a great ladder just to kind of give you a visual. I know we talk about how, students with IEPs benefit from Orton Gillingham, but really every child does. You can see at the top the green and yellow students. That's your portion of readers who learn to read seamlessly, effortlessly. They might not even need a rigorous program or a program at all, but you can tell that's not a large portion. When you look at the red and orange, up to 65% of our readers need an explicit reading program. And so that's why our Orton Gillingham at Dvsd is so important, because for these children, it's crucial and essential that they are having direct instruction by teachers, by highly skilled reading specialists to support them. And as you can see too, even our strongest readers, they're still benefiting from that reading instruction. It's never going to hurt them, it'll always help them. So this just kind of gives you a little more perspective. So we have a little video, and this talks more about the overview of structured literacy and kind of the benefits of it. So.
For almost a century, researchers have argued over the question, how do children learn to read? But for the last few decades, the research has actually been pretty clear. Written language is a code. Certain combinations of letters predictably represent certain sounds. Teaching young kids how to crack the code is the most reliable way to make sure that they learn how to read words. This kind of instruction is called systematic phonics. Connecting printed letters on a page to written sounds isn't intuitive. While some young children may make those connections themselves, most don't. The research shows that explicit phonics instruction benefits early readers, but particularly those who struggle to read. That's because small strengths or deficits at the start of reading compound over time. Of course, there is more to reading than seeing a word on a page and pronouncing it out loud. Children need to make meaning out of the words they read. That means that they also need deep background and vocabulary knowledge, and eventually they need to be able to recognize most words automatically and read connected text fluently. But knowing how to decode is an essential step in becoming a reader. If children can't decipher the precise words on the page, they'll never become fluent readers. In a systematic phonics program, teachers don't just address the letter-sound connections that students stumble over. They teach all of them in a sequence. And teachers explicitly tell students what sounds correspond to which letter patterns, rather than asking students to figure it out. 2 decades ago, the US government brought together a panel to evaluate reading research. The panel's report found that among students in kindergarten and first grade, phonics instruction led to improvements in decoding ability and reading comprehension across the board. Children at risk of developing future reading problems, children with disabilities, and children from all socioeconomic backgrounds all benefited. Neuroscience research has since confirmed that explicitly teaching these skills helps people learn how to read new languages more quickly. Of course, phonics instruction, like all teaching, can and should be differentiated to meet the needs of individual students. Once a student knows a sound or phonics skill, he should move on. Many early reading classrooms teach students strategies to identify a word by guessing, using context clues and pictures. Neuroscience studies have found that guessing is a much less efficient way to identify a new word. It's what struggling readers do, not proficient ones. Phonics is essential, but understanding the alphabetic code doesn't automatically make students good readers. There are 5 components of reading: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. A framework called the Simple View of Reading explains how comprehension works. It says that reading comprehension is the product of decoding ability and language comprehension. A student needs both good decoding and good language skills to understand what's on the page. If either one of those is low, then comprehension will be low as well. Many people point out that research shows that children who read more are better readers. That's true, but it's important to remember that those studies are correlational. It's unclear whether students become better readers because they read more, or whether good readers are just more likely to pick up books. To learn more, check out Education Week's ongoing series, Getting Reading Right. For almost a century, researchers have argued.
All right, so we're going to talk about the creation of DVOG. Once we realized that the impact our Orton-Gillingham intervention was having on the children at risk, the district recognized how we could use this program to positively impact all the students in our primary and elementary schools. So the interventionists got back to work, and the district created its own kindergarten through second grade Orton-Gillingham curriculum to extend the benefits to the students in the classroom. The curriculum aligns with the scope and sequence that the interventionists were using, and it was named DVOG. Kindergarten through second grade teachers were trained and are currently teaching DVOG in their classrooms 30 minutes a day, 4 days a week. Students at risk are given an additional intensive intervention of DVOG with reading specialists in a small group setting. Third grade teachers also have a DVOG spelling curriculum that enhances and reinforces skills that have been previously learned in kindergarten through second grade. An important thing to remember too is that all the schools in our district are using DVOG in the same way. So the language, it's a common language throughout all the buildings in the district. This is extremely important, not only as students move from one grade level to the other, because it just is a continuation of the same language, but we have a lot of students that move from one building to another throughout the school year, and as they move, they're able to pick up right where they left off, because it's basically universal in all of the schools. And I think that's a really important thing, to keep that, close those gaps and make that transition for these students seamless. Here's just kind of an example of what you would see in a daily lesson. One of the things they do is the handwriting, and in second grade we are teaching cursive writing. This is what they're doing in the classroom. Phonemic awareness activities, this would be the manipulation of sounds. Card deck and blending drill, this is where students are blending sounds into words and learning different syllable types. Red words, this would be, high frequency words or sight words, and we call them red words. Morphology would be prefix and suffixes, and that the students are learning how those things change the meanings of the words, and this is really effective with vocabulary development. All of this is done through repetition, cycling of structured language skills. The students are learning the rules of the language. I know growing up I always thought all it was exceptions to the rules, but through letters training, through all the Orton-Gillingham training, I realized that most of our language actually does follow the rules, and it's pretty 98% exactly, and that was one of the shockers for me, because I really, growing up, it's like, oh, it's the exception to the rule, but there are rules, and we're teaching the kids those rules, and they're relying on those rules, and it's just giving them such a stronger sense of their reading abilities. And everything is done with multisensory activities, and using their fine motor, gross motor skills.
So after the creation of DVOG, like Monica said, it was rolled out into K-2 classrooms. And there are many stakeholders. Although the reading specialists created DVOG, the classroom teachers really play a pivotal role. They're the ones, giving all of our students that Tier 1 instruction. They're kind of like that first line of defense against, supporting struggling readers. And so we work hard to provide them support. Even our veteran classroom teachers and our new classroom teachers, they all deserve. We work to support them, we model for them, we help them with resources, we come and push into their classrooms to make sure that everyone feels comfortable and feels confident in what they're teaching our students in the classroom. And like we mentioned, the students are still provided with those classrooms rich with DVOG tools and resources, materials, the pictures of the cards that Monica had on the other page. We're using consistent language within the classrooms, and we're also empowering students with reading strategies so that they can take charge of their own reading.
And I just wanted to circle back. I wanted to talk about, even with COVID, the shutdown, virtual learning, DVOG kept on going. Teachers made instructional videos that could be shared with students at home. Documents were adapted to be used through technology. So even through the COVID challenges, DVOG lived on, which was a great thing. The role of the interventionist has changed or has grown over the past few years. We're primarily providing that intense intervention with the students in small groups, and during that tier time we're reinforcing previously learned skills that the students have learned in the classroom, and repeating and doing repeated practice and error correction. In the pictures you can see there's some teachers there working with, the first one is the gross motor skills and doing multisensory of blending the words, and then below you can see a student, she's got little lights and she's tapping the lights to break up the sounds of the word. So a lot of multisensory instruction. And in addition to the work with our students, we're also working with regular classroom teachers and special education teachers as reading interventionists. And some of the things that we're doing for them, we're trying to maintain that culture of structured literacy in our schools by partnering with all the teachers in the district. So we push into regular classrooms to support and coach classroom teachers. We model DVOG for new teachers. So when a new teacher is hired that hasn't been trained yet on DVOG, the reading specialist will go in, model, support, and train, make sure that their classrooms are set up with the right materials and things on the board, the tools that they need. For the first marking period, we've been pushing into every classroom for the entire first marking period. We're supporting the teachers, modeling instruction, and it helps us to identify students potentially at risk. And we also provide in-service training to all classroom teachers. Teachers at any time can request support with accessing resources they may need, reviewing data, supporting IEP goals, and we provide assessment support when necessary.
So in addition to helping classroom and special education teachers, we also really work hard to support our instructional assistants. When you think about it, they work very closely, especially in the K-2 classrooms, alongside the teachers. They work with small groups and centers. And so supporting them, making sure that they understand the materials they're using, we model for them, we review them yearly, give them refreshers, because we want to make sure that the language they're using is common language, so that no matter what adult they're working with throughout the school day, they're successful, they are hearing the same Orton-Gillingham language, and really becoming better readers. So prior to COVID, we had done a lot with Compass for new teachers who wanted to learn the intensive Orton-Gillingham methods. Since then, our district has moved towards an in-house training where we're still teaching teachers intensive Orton-Gillingham, special ed teachers, and classroom teachers. But we, in 2019, Lori O'Malley, who is recently retired from Dingdale Primary, created the Dvsd Structured Literacy Program. And so again, we're still offering the same Orton-Gillingham best practices. There's still trainings, there's assessments, there's books we're reading, but we're providing that to teachers within the district. So when Lori retired in 2021, Shelby Mitchell and I took over that program. And like any other program, it's constantly adapting to best fit the needs of our classroom and our special ed teachers. We're working hard to provide this training for more and more special ed teachers, just so that during tier time, we have as many teachers that are highly trained and highly qualified to work with the Orton-Gillingham program. As you can see on the next slide, these are some of the requirements that anyone participating in the Dvsd Structured Literacy cohort has to follow. So in the summer, prior to even starting, Shelby and I do 40 hours of lecture with them. We're teaching them the procedures, the activities, the appropriate steps for Orton-Gillingham. From there, during the school year, they have to complete 60 hours of lessons. So that 60 hours can be broken up 30 hours with a one-on-one student, and then 30 hours with a small group, or 40-20. But the importance is when you do it one-on-one, you really get to practice those procedures that sometimes it looks different in a small group setting than it does one-on-one. So really making sure they feel confident and strong in the one-on-one setting, and then expanding to the small group. Additionally, Shelby and I will go and observe those teachers. We give them feedback. We send weekly feedback on their lesson plans. We're there to, connect with them and just make sure that they feel confident at the end of that year with the skills they've learned. So we know we've talked a lot about just from the school perspective and Orton-Gillingham and the benefits, but we did want to share some parent perspectives, just so you can see how far-reaching the benefits of Orton-Gillingham are. So the first one is from a former student that I worked with. She has recently moved to a different state, but it says when our daughter was struggling with reading so early on, we were really concerned. Within 6 months of doing intensive OG, we saw major progress with her confidence, and her skill set was vastly improved. We now have a student who loves reading and is confident in doing it all thanks to the OG program. So this child still loves reading. It really helped foster her love of reading that she didn't quite have when she first came to me in first grade. Now she's big.
And another parent wrote, "My daughter would not be the reader she is today without the help of Mrs. Osborne and the OG program. It took a great program and the true love of teaching that helped guide her on the reading journey. For my child, it made all the difference, and I will forever be incredibly grateful."
So we just wanted to show you what we do, it makes a huge difference for students in our district. It stays with them long term. This second student is now in middle school. and doing amazing. So we're just, we just wanted to share that, the greater benefits of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments from the board?
Me personally, I'm thrilled that it's here. My child I had to seek outside because we didn't have that program here, and it was a total game changer. So when this came in, I was super excited for all those students. So, yeah.
It's been neat for us to actually see it change lives. I mean,
Yeah.
We all have stories where we could say, and I've seen
Yeah.
incredible changes in the children, so.
I remember when Dr. Schaefer first came to us and how excited she was about this pilot program. And I mean, I remember you saying that you weren't sure that we were going to get it because it was only 8 districts, across the state that were able to use the pilot program. And I mean, Mrs. O'Malley was wonderful. And sorry that she retired, but I know that all our students are in great hands because the work that our reading specialists are doing really makes such a tremendous difference, whether it's that we're in Gillingham, or, fluency programs and, that they've worked with. It's comprehension. I mean, it's amazing what we're doing with our students, and we really, from parents and the board, and I know the administration, everyone appreciates all that you guys do.
Absolutely. The sensory end of it is wonderful, especially for the kids struggling. The worst thing to do is just put a book of words in front of them because they don't know what to do with that. So the sensory end of it makes it almost fun, right? To press the buttons and get the right button. And the fact that we're doing the same program in all the schools across the district, wonderful. Thank you.
And I'd just like to add, the more I hear about different school districts, this is kind of the DV difference. I really appreciate everybody, Peg, and to say, well, let's bring this forward-looking program here and let's compete so we can get it, and then let's put it in place so effectively. And I also just want to thank you for the presentation because it's really helpful for us as board members and also members of the community to see what's going on in the schools. This is terrific. Thanks.
I just want to add that having trainers in
Peg, can I ask you to save your comments for the public session?
Oh, sure.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Corey's next.
Yeah, it's a tremendous amount of work, so congratulations. Do we have any, I'm just curious, aggregate assessment data? Are there any standard assessments to show how much this has benefited, the cohorts of students? Have we done anything? I'm just curious, because it is a lot of work, right? I mean, maybe something to look into.
We do a lot, beginning of the year, we do that beginning, middle, and end of year data. Most of it catered to through Gibbles.
Okay.
And I was just asking them, how their mid-year data was, and they're, thrilled to say that was great.
We were running reports, and then we weren't quite sure if we should bring data, so.
No, it's okay. I'm just
a long presentation.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm just wondering before the implementation of the program if there was a level, and now we're at a different
I can tell
level.
you from an observation standpoint when I was still in the building. So when the first group of third graders came in that had done all 3 years of OGIA, personally was like, wow, I can't wait to see what the difference. And it's so funny, you're still seeing, they're at the desk doing this. I'm like, all right, that's good. And the fluency piece of it was amazing. And the great part for the still struggling readers in third grade, if they came in and their fluency was a problem and then their comprehension, you're battling 2 things. So now that the fluency piece of it was not an issue anymore, and if they were still struggling and we could just focus on that comprehension. So I saw it as I walked around and looking at kids, and I saw it through like STAR data and those things, and I was like, ooh, okay, this is great, this is, but that first year was like really eye-opening for me to see just exactly, these are kids that did all 3 years of it, and they know it, and they will tell you, like, you're not doing it right.
What I've seen too is we have more comprehension groups now than fluency groups. So it used to be more of the fluency groups,
which is great.
Now we're starting right in 2nd grade with comprehension groups, or 3rd grade, so, which is.
And as they said, it's great for everybody, so.
I think of it as kind of casting a big net. You're getting everyone, and then of course you're gonna catch the ones that really need it in that net, so.
Thank you again for an excellent presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you ladies may excuse yourself when you want to.
Have a great night.
The unified track and field on the agenda tonight, we're postponing to next month.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that will not be tonight. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. At this time, we have public comment, and if you would just raise your hand, the comment is on anything on tonight's agenda. One here and then two there, yes.
Hi, Karen Williams here. I see that unified track and field is on the agenda, so, I have a question. What is the policy for, boys who may identify as female participating in women's sports at Delaware Valley?
Okay, so you can put your questions in writing, send them to our website, and we will certainly answer them. However, that agenda item has been put off till next month. That's what I just mentioned.
So, am I just clear, the official board policy is that you will not answer any questions during the board meeting?
We will not have a discussion, but we will answer questions later in the meeting.
I didn't ask for discussion, I just asked a question.
Okay? Are you done?
Who do I ask?
You can send your questions to our website,
To where?
schoolboard@dvsd.org.
Oh, to the school board, and then who will I expect an answer from?
Whoever is the appropriate person. Yes, sir.
Hi, Bruce Pollock, Milford resident. I'd just like to ask the board to consider not rescinding the educational equity clause. I understand that there are some redundancies in other protections, perhaps Title IX might be part of that, but I have a feeling that it doesn't hurt to have an extra emphasis on certain protections for different groups. And if anything, it might close up some loopholes in the wording of one protection versus another. And I think the more protections for a lot of these groups that are being considered, the better. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? So I saw him first, yes.
Joe Camerlay from Milford Township. First, I'd like to thank the board for your support for implementing these peer-reviewed and science-based programs that have definitively shown improvements in our students' reading scores. The fact that the school district is able to make an investment in the students, I think, is really critical to its continuing success. Secondly, I'd like to remind the board that it is your duty to provide a high-quality educational environment to all students within the district. That includes anyone of marginalized identities, and your job is to protect them so that they can succeed both academic and personally.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm Dory Smith, and I'm from West Point area. Actually, I think it's very important to really think about 832 and really be careful. Sometimes things sneak in, and we already have equal opportunity for all students. And like this wonderful, program they're doing to really help students with reading is really priceless. And also, we also have to be careful. We don't want everybody to become the same, like robots. We want to give everybody equal opportunity, and then with freedom to achieve. Some people, like I also had sons who really struggled with reading, but then over time they learned, and now they're like excellent readers. Sometimes you have to go through a process, and you have to work a little harder at certain things. And also sometimes not everybody who's gifted in the same area. But I believe we have equal, rights and equal opportunity in this country and freedom to achieve. And we have all these things available. So I don't think we need Protocol 832. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Crystal. I had a question about number 807, opening exercises, flag displays.
Okay, if you can put your question in writing, we'll
It's
get an
not a
answer.
question, can someone explain that or read about that to me?
About 807?
Yeah.
Like I said, if you have questions, we'll answer them at the public comment is over and the board comment is at the end of the meeting. But if you have a question, you can certainly send it to us.
No, I guess I just wanna know if that was gonna be talked about. Or like-
The board might talk about it later, it's on the agenda. Mhm. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question about that too, so if I'm reading this correctly.
I'm sorry, name for the secretary,
Sure,
please.
Gina Mancata. It looks like that's the only one that, there was a change, so is there any way that you guys could tell us what the change in the policy is?
We can tell you
We'll
later,
discuss
sure.
it later?
If
Okay.
somebody wants to talk about it later, they can.
And then my other question would be, the first review, are we gonna discuss that at the next work session, or we having, that'll be the next?
That's the process, right.
Got it.
Matt, Matt, you were up first.
Ladies first.
Okay.
Mine's not really a question. I'm interested in.
Name for the.
Meg.
Okay, Meg,
That's
thank you.
Merrill.
Yep.
Adam Morse. I'm interested in all the questions everybody has that I realize you can't answer here. I did get an email back from you when I did ask about it, could they be put up on the website? You said that it was discussed with the super, and at this time, you'll not be doing such. It's an issue about the website has some sticky legal ramifications with permission and privacy, etc. I don't understand why, questions can't be put on the website that have been asked without the person's name and without the emails. I mean, you do a kind of like, frequently asked questions, you know, FAQ part of the website that we can look at. Cause I'd be interested to know, you know, the answers that people are getting. But if I don't see them, I don't know them, I'm not calling them up during the week, how, you know, excuse for the question, but how am I gonna know? So if there is a way that you could work on that a little bit harder, to put questions up there that have been asked. I mean, we don't need our names up there, I mean, you can put them up there if you want, but you don't need names, you don't need emails, you just say, we had this question this week. And then, you know, put an answer. Thanks.
Thank you. Matt?
Matthew Contreras. So, I mean, to piggyback on what Meg's saying, so where can other parents and taxpayers see questions and answers directed to and answered by the board, by other parents and taxpayers? You know, the email that Meg received sounds like was more obfuscation. We just want to see where the questions are answered by the board. Currently, if we ask you a question, it has to be in writing, which is ridiculous. This is the point of the public meeting, to have a discourse. I understand you may not want to answer a question, which is fine, but simple questions that are directed to the board should be able to be answered, number one. And number two, other taxpayers and parents should be able to see the answer. It's really simple. There's no legal, you know, I just asked a question. There's nothing legal about, this is a public meeting. You know, the question's public. There's nothing legal about answering that question. So how is the board answering questions from the public? Where can other parents and taxpayers see the questions and the answers? Why, you know, we keep asking this question. This has been going on for months and months, and we're not getting an answer. So I'd like to know from the 5 board members that are up for re-election this year, what's the answer? You know, Jack is not the only person on this board who can answer the question, so I'd like an answer. How is the school district vetting library books entering the school district, and why haven't parents and taxpayers been consulted? The board keeps giving us an answer through Jack Fisher that you don't ban books. Okay, you don't ban books, but how are you vetting the books, the new books that are coming in? How is that being vetted? Can you answer the question so that the rest of the public can hear it? Why have parents and taxpayers been excluded from the curriculum process? Why was the curriculum committee disbanded? Can we have an answer, please? It's been several months, we've been asking the same question. And so, we're just looking for some transparency. You know, it's great that we have these programs that help some of the IEP learners. I think it's wonderful. I love the question that Corey answered, because he's asking for a baseline so that the district can justify the program. What's the percentage, here's another question, I'm surprised nobody asked this, what's the percentage of DV students that are using the Orton-Gillingham method? Does anybody know that question? So you're saying I'm gonna have to put that in writing, you're not gonna answer a really simple question or say,
We'll get that information, we'll finish the presentation and actually get the public some information. Or ask the counselor, you know, the solicitor, the board solicitor, why are you unable to answer these questions, these simple questions? You know, if you have nothing to hide, then why hide? It doesn't make any sense to me. And I know there are very reasonable people on this board, and I don't understand why you keep hiding behind this thing. It doesn't make any sense. There's nothing legal that prevents you from a little bit of transparency and communicating with the public. It's ridiculous, especially if you have a brand new superintendent. You would think you'd want to turn over a new leaf, and we have no new leaf. I've sent Jessica some of these questions just now to the email, and I didn't get a response. So when should I expect a response? And who's the response gonna come from? Is it gonna come from the whole board, or is it just gonna come from you, Mr. Fisher? I'd like an answer to that. From somebody on the board. Can somebody on the board speak? Maybe one of the people who is up for election, like Ms. Agron or Ms. Bouquet or Mr. Carso. No one? No? Mr. Fisher? No? Okay.
Any other members of the public? Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Christina, Delaware Township. So I went on YouTube just now to see if there was an area underneath or something for anybody in the public now watching, how they submit their comments or questions. There's nothing on the live for anybody that's watching at home to send an email. I know in the past, like it's been said that if there's any comments, we'll review it during the meeting, but as far as I can remember, any of these meetings I've gone to, I've never heard any comments from people online sending any emails. And I know there have been some that have sent emails, but they're never addressed. Is anybody gonna, like, are we gonna get those comments read out loud at a board meeting? People that are online live right now that wanna comment on something, or are their comments not gonna be heard? Is it the only way that they're gonna be heard is if they come in person? Because if they can't, if they're at work and they're a nurse and they can't make it, but they're able to watch on their break and submit a comment, they're not actually being heard at all. Not even at least by us in representation of an online access. And I also agree with Matthew that I think there should be some sort of vetting process for future books that are coming into the library or even into our school. There should be some policy in place. There is no policy in place. A teacher can actually bring books in of their own and bring them into the classroom. There's no vetting that's done, so I don't really expect an answer. It's just a general comment. It would be nice, but yeah, maybe you guys can add on the YouTube underneath the subtitle where people can write in, because I don't see an email address right now, Frank. So if I miss the first like couple of seconds of the board meeting presentation right now, I wouldn't even know it. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, we will need an executive session to discuss. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand, ma'am.
Sorry, that's okay. Lisa Jenkins, Milford, Borough. Couple of things. I support, what Drew said about 832, I concur with completely. He said everything I wanted to say, so I also think that we should keep 832 second. As far as any inquiries I've ever made to the board, I've gotten answers from multiple board members multiple times, and I appreciate that very much. I don't understand what the issue is regarding questions. And wanted to clarify, because I think there seems to be some misunderstanding with some members of the public about the difference between equity and equality. They are not the same thing, which is why I think 832 is important.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I would agree with Doris.
Name, please.
My name is Teresa Brown, and I would agree with Dora Smith regarding the equity, the 832, her position that we all are aware that equity and equality are not the same thing. And those of us who are concerned about equality are also aware of many ways that equity actually diminishes equality, and it brings out labels. We put labels on people and identify them in certain ways that provide for special treatment of a person because of a label, rather than the way it used to be, where we just look at people individually and we treat people as an individual. We value the strengths of a person for their individualism, and we understand that we're all different. We're not trying to make all of us be the same person. And, so I think it's important for us to get back to focusing on equality where everybody has equal ability to do the same things, but they can do those things in their own ways. They're not put into categories that actually create an incredible amount of division. And in terms of the transparency and the asking questions and the dialogue and all of that, it is a big concern. I've recently been talking to a lot of people in the community, and I just gotta say, the impression is that this board is obfuscating everything. You know, you can go, I've looked at the annual reports from 2011 up until the current day annual reports, and in terms of tax increases, you know, it starts out in 2011 that says there's been no tax increases since in the past 6 years, and then it goes on and says no tax increases in the past 8 out of 12 years. So you might have had tax increases in the recent 4 years, but it's being worded in a way that no one can even understand something like that in an annual report. And there are so many ways that the board can do things that are transparent, that encourage the public to participate more. We have this little crampy little room that is so not welcoming for anyone to come. We're silenced if we say anything that somebody dislikes, like the word Marxist. And it doesn't bring us together as a community and create a willingness of people wanting to get involved. I mean, why drive over here only to be silenced and sent home as if we have nothing of value to say? And the fact that we can't ask a question and get an answer that creates a dialogue is more of the same thing. There's no dialogue. I mean, you could not answer questions here and then, go to some measures and make things obvious on the school website so that we could get information when we're looking for information instead of looking around and finding nothing. But even that doesn't happen, so it's just a silencing. And I just really think that's the impression people in the community are telling me about this current board. And I thought you might be interested to know that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You've already had a chance. Anybody who hasn't had a chance yet? Okay. So we will need an executive session to discuss student issues, expulsions, and personnel items. May I have a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're going in here, and we'll be back.
Bring Pam. Yes, bring.
So may I have a motion to move back into regular session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I have a motion to approve the minutes from the regular board meeting held on January 19th, 2023. Motion, please.
Motion. Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. You have in your packet the administrative reports and attendance reports, and financial reports. Are there any comments from the board on any of those documents?
Big congrats to FBLA. Boy, that was a long list.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Pass that along.
Good stuff.
Yes.
Amazing stuff going on in CTE. That was nice. Good, all good stuff.
Okay, so at this point, we'll have the superintendent's report. Dr. Blum.
Thank you. We had our RBESR and homelessness monitoring visits this month. Both went very well, as usual. Congratulations to Bill and his office. The RBESR, Dr. Pope handled the homelessness monitoring visit, which went very well as well. And we have Perkins monitoring coming up the first week in March. As Felicia just inferred, we are currently in CTE month, so we've been trying to highlight our career tech students and some of the programs that they're doing. The health occupation students with our nurses just coordinated a blood drive that went very well a week ago. We did our freshman tours, where every 9th grade student is afforded the opportunity to spend one class period in one of our 8 CTE programs and kind of experience what it's like. So they get to go through kind of the lesson, they get to hear about the jobs and professions associated with that particular career, meet the teachers, and then talk to some of the students. The next step in the process is when they're done with their tour, they fill out an exit survey basically saying, are you interested in perhaps pursuing this, because there's a lot of scheduling ramifications when they become sophomores. The students that reply yes will go to another kind of round of a tour where they'll have a meeting with the teacher and a couple of the level 3 students to answer any questions that they may have. And then they meet with our counselor to see how the scheduling would fit for them, and then ultimately decide if they want to join the program or not. But since we've started to do this touring years ago, we really saw an increase in the amount of kids that have signed up for the program and are there who are really kind of set on what career path they want to choose for themselves. So we've had a lot less turnover and a lot more retention for the 3 years of the career tech program, which is what it's meant for. So that's been really nice to see. The other thing that they're doing, and I had mentioned this a week ago, is they're doing cross-curricular activities right now where the different programs will work with each other. You'll have our automotive class working with our electrical students working with our building students, lighting houses and things like that. One of the cooler ones that we saw that was new this year, they did a teddy bear clinic where our early childhood education students and their preschool students came to our health occupation students, and they kind of ran like a Doc McStuffins type situation where the students worked on a stuffed animal or toy of our preschool students. So that went really well. There was just a lot of positive feedback that came out of that. The kids really liked working with each other because kids in CTE have 3 periods together where, that's a long time, essentially almost 2.5 hours. So when they get an opportunity to work cross-curricularly with other classes, they really enjoy it. And we've done this in the past. We had our AP environmental students work with our automotive students on lower emissions and engines and things like that. We had our physics students work with our automotive students and our building students on different tools and techniques, and it's just interesting to see the way the students communicate with each other based on whether they're more prepared with like the textbook theoretical views of these things versus the kids that are much more hands-on with how they problem solve. So we'd like to incorporate those cross-curricular activities whenever possible. And then other than that, the girls covered most of our activities and events going on with our sports that are in districts and our OM competition. So that's all I have for this month.
Any questions for Dr. Blum?
Do the CTE programs ever close out, or?
They do,
Yeah.
occasionally. The real spot that we sometimes see it is level 2, because level 1, you can have, depending on the program, you can have between 25 and 30 students in a level 1 program, which is your automotives, your healthcare, your culinary. You may see that many kids. Level 2 and 3 are combined. So you'll lose some in level 1, either from lack of interest or not being successful in the program, and then you'll see your kids going to level 2. However, with levels 2 and 3, you're still at that number of 25 or 30. So, kids do peel away. The good thing about it is in some of the more popular programs, it allows the instructors to kind of raise the bar for kids and say, like, if you're not doing what you're supposed to, if you're not keeping up with the program, or you're grades are suffering elsewhere, you're not on path to graduate, because again, 3 credits is a lot that you're taking in CT. It doesn't give you an opportunity for any leeway for other classes to be failing. That's an opportunity then for those kids that they may not be able to go to level 2. So it does create a more rigorous environment, but it can happen. Generally speaking, we haven't, knock on wood, run into that, where kids who are fully capable and have been recommended for future levels have had to not go to those levels. It usually just through the natural process, you'll see kids peel away, whether through their disinterest with the program or through their academic suffering.
Do students ever switch disciplines? I know that would be kind of hard after you've built a certain skill set.
It is. Occasionally we'll see it with something related. Building and electrical is the most common, where a student may take level 1 electrical and then jump into building level 1. The other thing, to speak to what Felicia just asked, if a level 1 class is filling up, one of the more popular ones, sophomores do get the priority because it allows them the 3 years to finish the program. So a junior who is looking for a level 1 would be the next round of students that would be allowed to get in if there was room for the program. So it does happen, but I think that kids, through the counselors, through their freshman seminar classes, and through the actual CT instructors and the process we use, I think they have a good idea of what it means to be a completer for the program. You know, the certifications you get at the end of the program, the NOCTI you take at the end of the program, where if you move in and out, you're a concentrator instead of a completer, which doesn't make you eligible for the same amount of certifications and benefits of completing 3 years of a program.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Do these students take the same math as the other students?
What's that?
Do they take the same math requirements as the other students?
Yes.
Or is there a specific like technical math class
Nope.
that they do?
Nope, they're leveled just like everybody else for their major subjects. Sophomore year, they don't take a social studies class. That's the one that's peeled away, and that's allowable later on. And their phys ed is done in CTE junior and senior year to allow them room to take their 3 credits. Yeah, we have students in CT that are in your more technical type math classes, and you have kids in AP Calc.
Yeah.
So you see a pretty wide spread.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Motion.
Second.
Any questions on the treasurer's report? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. May I have a motion to accept the bills for payment, which include the general fund, the cafeteria fund, the 2021B capital projects fund, and the capital reserve fund. Motion, please.
Aye.
Thank you, Pam.
Second.
Any questions on the bills? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried, the bills are paid. Before we go on to personnel items, we do need to get the approval of item 10A, since this item pertains to personnel, and after all the other personnel items, we will continue with the rest of the approvals. May I have a motion for the approval of the dismissal of employee 2022-2023-03748, effective January 19th, 2023. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
There is no discussion, as this is a personnel item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. How's that, Julie? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the personnel items, including resignations, appointments, child-rearing leave, change of status, change of salary, and request for sabbatical leave, with the retirements accepted with regret. Motion, please.
Motion. Second.
Any questions on all the approvals? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. May I have a motion for the approval of additional volunteers per the attachment? Motion, please.
Motion.
Second.
Any question on the volunteers? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We have a motion for the approval of the additional DVACE instructor for the spring 2023 session. Samantha Felzo is an aquatics instructor. Motion, please.
Motion.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Welcome, Samantha. May I have a motion for the approval of tenure from Michaela Smith?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations to Michaela. That's a big step in her career. We wish her the best. May I have a motion for the approval of the Colonial Intermediate Unit Number 20 General Operating Budget for 22-23, 23-24, including the administrative services, curriculum development services, management services, and instructional materials services. Motion, please.
Motion.
Second.
Any questions on the IU-20 general operating budget? We were all given a copy of that last week. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. May I have a motion for the approval of the resolution for Dr. Brian Blum to electronically sign any and all contracts, agreements, grants, and/or licenses with the Pennsylvania Department of Education per our attachment. Motion, please.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Pretty straightforward. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Dr. Blum. Motion carries. May I have a motion for the approval of the use of Act 80 days for the 2023-2024 school year?
So moved.
Second.
We talked about this last week. Any further questions?
Just, these are the flexible learning days. No, what's the,
So the Act 80 days are for professional development.
oh, I'm sorry, I
That's
got them
okay.
confused. You're right,
The
okay.
FIDs are the ones we apply for
Right,
in the
right,
event
right.
we need extra days on our calendar.
Gotcha, thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. May I have a motion to authorize the board president to review and sign the settlement agreement upon solicitor review?
Motion. Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Should I abstain, or is it all right?
Board president?
I don't want to, and I'm saying, should I?
Yeah.
I'll abstain because I'm the one we're talking about. Motion carries with my abstention. May I have a motion for the approval for the expulsion of student 2023, 100011685 for 180 days. Motion, please.
So moved.
Just school days.
School days, 180 school days.
Second.
This is a student issue. There is no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries with the school days in there. May I have a motion for the approval for the expulsion of student 2022-2023 4000282 for 45 days.
School days.
School days.
Motion.
Second.
This is a student issue. There is no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I have a motion for the approval for the expulsion of student 2022-2023 1001394 for 45 school days.
So moved.
Second.
This is a student issue. There is no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. May I have a motion for the permanent expulsion of student 2022-2023 1008905? Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
This is a student issue. There is no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. May I have a motion for the approval of board policies listed 1 through 17? Should I read them all, or you will have them in front of you? I'll read them all. 201, admissions of students. 209.1, head lice. 317, conduct disciplinary procedures. 702, gifts, grants, and donations. 706, property records. 708, lending of equipment and books. 710, use of facilities by staff. 800, record retention policy. 800.1, record destruction policy. 801, public records policy. 807, opening exercises, flag displays. 811, bonding. 812, property insurance. 813, other insurance. 814, copyright policy. 832, educational equity, which is an approval to rescind. And 918, Title I, parental involvement. Motion, please.
Motion. Second.
Board discussion?
I would like to go to 807, which there was a question regarding, we went over in the workshop. But the only change in that policy was under authority, the third paragraph. The word may was changed to shall. So instead of reading the district may offer opening exercises that include the salute, it says the district shall offer opening exercises that include the salute.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on any policies?
I would like to say more, if I can,
Sure.
about the equity policy, because I understand the comments from everyone on this. I think when you're looking at this policy, first of all, and I want to read from one of our other policies as we were going through them. The board declares it to be the policy of this district to provide an equal opportunity for all students to achieve their maximum potential through the programs and activities offered in the school without discrimination on the basis of race, color, age, creed, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, ancestry, national origin, marital status, pregnancy, or handicap disability. So this district already covers everything in the equity policy, and through a number of different policies that that were required by law, and I think we go over and above that. So equity to me has always been in education, and I think it's one of those hot button topics right now, and I think that policy is written in such a way that instead of inciting the correct response that I think Delaware Valley already has, and already it's in our culture, I think it incites a political response. And I think we saw that in public comment today. And that is why I personally want to rescind the policy. Because I don't think it's here to do what it's supposed to do. It doesn't attach to any laws, it doesn't attach to school code. There's no reason we need it. Could we take it apart and get rid of the reporting and get rid of the hot button items and whatnot? We could, but I don't think we need to. Equity in school is, so when you have equality, everybody's got an equal opportunity, not an equal outcome. That's not guaranteed, but an equal opportunity. When you take a child who can't speak English, or has a disability, or whatever the case may be, and you throw them into a regular classroom, that's an equal opportunity. But they need more help. So we've all seen those things going around Facebook over the years that are the picture of equality, and it's got the different boxes, equity, it's got the different boxes. So you've got equality and all the boxes are the same, but some kids can't see over the fence, and then you've got equity and the boxes are different heights so that all the kids can see over the fence. Oops, sorry, I'm getting a call while I'm on with Pam. I wonder if I can. Yeah. All right. Sorry about that. So there's equity in some people's mind is a bad word right now, and it's a bad word because it ignites a political response. And politics don't belong in school. They don't belong in Delaware Valley and in our education of students. If I were to rewrite the policy would simply say that Delaware Valley strives to give every student what they need to achieve at their maximum level, regardless of who they are, where they come from, and I think we do that.
Anyone else? Jess?
I think last week I had asked Dr. Blom just his recommendation, and I know that when we first brought this policy up, was, 2 months ago now, you had discussed about the potential to rescind it, and looking at it, I mean, it refers back to 35 of our other policies, as far as all of the footnotes, and I know, we talk about equity and equality in our handbook as well, so for me, based on your recommendation that, that we don't need to have this policy, that we should rescind it.
I think the more policies we have that say the same thing, we're just gonna get, it's very hard to tie a decision that we make to a policy when there's 6 policies that say the same thing. All it's gonna do is jumble up what we're trying to accomplish and could have a negative impact on a student or a member of our staff. We have many policies that guarantee that our students receive exactly what they need. That's not the same. I mean, we see it in every presentation we get. Delaware Valley provides the right education to the right student at the right time. We strive to do that every day. So to have a policy that says you have to do this plus do all this reporting and slice and dice everybody. I don't think we're doing our students or our staff or us any service by having the redundancy of this policy.
Derek, and then Brian?
I think that, as Jessica said, was it 35 policies that 832 referred back to? We, every opportunity is provided, and we do everything that we can to make sure that every single student has the opportunity that they need, no matter what they need, to achieve the success that they need for their lives. I think 832 goes beyond that. I think 832 injects politics into the school, and specifically I think it injects identity politics where it doesn't belong. And I think it actually detracts from our mission. And I think we can successfully rescind 832 without any detriment to the district, without any detriment to any of the students. And I believe that without 832, we can still do everything that we're required, not just that we're required to do by law, but morally obligated to do as people, as parents, as fiduciaries of our district and our students. And that's why I support rescinding 832.
Dr. Corso.
I would just like to say I appreciate the points made by all my fellow board members and certainly some of the public as well. But I come to, it's a close call for me, and I agree with what Mr. Pollack, who's not here now, but what he had said. And I think there's some benefit to, even though we say it references 35 other policies, it provides a focus too. So I'm prepared to vote for all of the policies, but when it comes to that one, I'm not going to vote to rescind it.
My two biggest concerns when I read through this was the educational equity audit that the policy mandates that the superintendent shall, not may, but shall perform periodically, and what the cost of that would be and what it would entail for him. So I'm glad we'd be rescinding this at the beginning of his term so that we don't have a lot of time spent as we go forward. And the other item was the Educational Equity Action Plan and what that would entail, because it does talk about all the various items that must be addressed, and I'll just name a few. Every policy has to be addressed, every administrative regulation and practice, explicit and implicit biases that people or staff might have, all the facilities would have to be addressed, the budgeted funds would have to be addressed from an equity standpoint. The curriculum and instruction would have to be addressed. Personnel would have to. Class size would have to be addressed. Now, we've been talking class size for 20 years as we try to lower it. And the code of student conduct that we hand out would have to be addressed from an equity standpoint. And the school climate, which, interestingly enough, I really don't know how you would address that. All those items would have to be addressed in this plan that Dr. Blum would be required to set up. So for those reasons and the cost involved, I'm going to vote that we rescind. Anybody else?
Just question on how, if Brian's already stated, do we need to separate
Yeah, I'll separate
832 out?
Yeah.
That was my question as well. I think we should separate it out so that there's no confusion.
Okay. So may I have a motion to approve all the board policies?
Motion to amend the motion for it to be 1 through 15 and 17 at this point.
May I have a motion?
I so moved.
Second. Well, did you get that, Julie?
That was to amend the motion.
Amend the
We already
motion,
had the
right.
original motion, yes.
And you did a vote on that.
All those in favor of amending the original motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the rescission of educational equity policy number 832?
I'm sorry, you have to do a motion, you have to do an approval, you have to do a vote on the amended motion
Oh, I
now.
thought I did.
You did.
No, we just
motion to
amended it
amend
to.
All right.
So now we need to do a motion to
Motion to
approve 1 through 15 and 17.
And 17.
Yeah.
Motion, please.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Now a motion to
Now,
approve.
may I have a motion to approve the
830.
rescission
Yes.
of number 832, number 16, educational equity?
Motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in, you want a roll call, Brian? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Me, no.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Please note in the minutes that the following policies, 1 through 14, are under their first review. Those will, with the asterisk, have no proposed changes. And these policies will be discussed at the March work session. So you'll see they all have no changes at this point. You want me to read those?
Some have changes. Some have changes, there's,
Yeah, there's a few.
I'm sorry, yes, okay.
maybe
Schools
7 that
organization.
don't.
So let's get those questions you have for Dr. Balam and his staff for the March meeting. Announcements, there will be a March 9th, 2023 work session, 6:30, right here at the DV offices. Remember, we're starting the budget process on March 9th. I think Marvin is up first. Is that right, Bill? Okay, so look at your calendar, make sure you can make that. The budget process lasts about 10 weeks, so 10 to 12 weeks. And then March 16, 2023, the regular board meeting, the voting session, 6:30, right here at the administrative offices. Closing comments from the board.
I have two things. One, Mrs. McNeely, the DVOG, it's all of our K2 students, correct, that participate in it?
Yes, as they said in their presentation.
Okay. So
All
that
K
means,
to 2, 4 days a week, 30 minutes a day. And then anybody pulled out for a tiered read intervention with a reading specialist gets an additional 30 to 40 minutes.
and then the third grade do
Spelling.
through
Correct.
Orton Gillingham. But then to answer your question, Matt, there would be 922 students in our district as of February 16th that are utilizing the DVOG, which is 21.9% of our student population.
Thank you.
And just the other thing is that I do, at the end of public comment, I do check the DV or school board at dvsd.org to make sure that there weren't public comments. We used to have, especially during COVID, when we were in the auditorium, we had many emails, and we used, and I would read them at the board
There
meetings,
will
but
be a
we
link
have
on it
not.
for the next one with the link for the email.
Perfect,
So-
but we have not had any during our board meetings.
I do, sorry.
I'm sorry, I almost do.
Let's go to Derek first.
Corey.
No, Corey, you were first? I'm sorry. You're on my left.
Yeah, that's
Didn't say-
okay.
yeah, you're-
Just a quick, just a general note to the public, I'll just use this forum. You know, we have a lot of new folks moving up into Pike County. Water rescues and things like that as the dive captain of the fire department have gone up every year for the last 8 years. You know, I think we just need to reiterate that to our students and our children about playing along the Delaware River. Northgate, who bought Kittatinny, is investing $57 million in Berryville, which is gonna increase our capacity down here about 15%. So in a full volunteer company, it's a lot of stress, so we could all do our part, you know, make sure children are wearing life jackets when on the river, cause a lot of us grew up on the river, but a lot of folks didn't. So just that general announcement.
Thank you. Derek?
Just a couple items here. And I know you just said the budget process is coming up, and that's gonna take up a lot of time. But if we can, I would like to add, until we can get it to some sort of conclusion we can vote on, a lot of questions are asked at the meeting, and a lot of times the answers are not forthcoming from the board. And speaking for myself, from my own perception, I'm afraid we're veering into a area where we're afraid to just say we don't know at this time. And I don't see any communication as to who to ask or where to get the answers from. I will say at the same time that from what I've seen, we're copied on every email that comes to whoever. And I have seen every single question asked, or every single question asked has been answered. Maybe not same day. But I do know that every question that's been asked has been answered. On the third hand, I see that those are not being made public. So I would like to add to the agenda, and if I have to ask every single time, then I will, but I would like maybe a standing item of addressing the meetings policy, where if we know an answer, or if somebody on this board knows the answer, then they can volunteer the answer to a question that's asked. I would like to see us say we don't know the answer at this time, because, you know, we're all volunteers. I mean, we're elected, obviously we're elected, but we're all still volunteering at time. And we may not have an idea of what's on your radar. Your radar is completely different from our radar. So if we can get an answer, then I would just ask for patience, but I think that we should update the meetings policy to permit asking questions and then permitting us to either answer during the meeting, either right at that moment if anybody knows the answer, or to then ensure that we follow up and get an answer to the person that asked the question. Any questions asked via email, I think we need to find a way to get an answer public, whether that's literally just printing out a piece of paper and putting it by the door where people can see this was asked in the 2-week interim, and this was our answer. If it's appropriate, if it's not like a student issue or things like that. The other one is books policy. I think we should take a look at how books are coming in, establish a policy. Even if it's just reviewing what we already do and making it public, I think that should also be an agenda item for the future. And that's, again, understanding that I know we've got the budget coming up. That's gonna take a lot of time. But I think we can make room for that. And just in general, for public comment, I think we do need to keep it close to what's on the agenda. However, there are times where things aren't on the agenda, and I do think that they are still appropriate for public comment. For instance, if anybody, this meeting had a budget concern, obviously the budget's not on the agenda, but it's going to be on the agenda soon. So I think that some clarification on the rule of what can be brought up at a meeting is necessary, because I think at any time of the year, even though maybe in September or October we say we're already in March, but I think that even if it's not on the agenda, there should be some measure for somebody to bring it up during public comment. That's all I got.
If I
Sure.
might add to add to what Derek said, yeah, somebody, and there are people who've been on the board longer than I have, but as someone who's been on the board for 8 years, I mean, a good portion of that 8 years, we would have the opportunity for the public to ask questions and receive responses, and there would be some discussion. And I think in the board works best when that takes place. But I also have been teaching government for 17 years, and I remind my students that self-government requires civil discourse. And the reason we've had to restrict the dialogue that has historically gone on is because starting during the COVID period and continuing, there have been certain meetings where the civic discourse has broken down, and it's become an issue of safety. Safety for board members as they walk to their cars, safety to the public in the meeting. We've had various episodes where people have lodged complaints that so-and-so did this to me, so-and-so did that to me, giving the finger, calling the board chairman an SOB. I think once we get better and we demonstrate that we can get back to civic discourse, where people respect each other, where people can of goodwill can disagree, because that's at the heart of self-government. And this is certainly, right, a school board is where self-government is where the rubber hits the road. But once I think we've demonstrated that, we can leave hostility somewhere off the premises and have civic discourse, and that people of goodwill can disagree, then I agree with Derek that we should move toward more open discussion. I don't think we're there yet. I want to see some real evidence that we're going to get there. And when that time comes, I would certainly support more discussion. But I think it's important for people to know, we don't just sit here and not answer. Lord knows I want to answer every question. But I also recognize that there is an overall issue to running this meeting in such a way that the board members can address the topics that need to be addressed, that people can speak without feeling that they're endangered or being harassed. And that takes precedence. Unfortunately, that takes precedence. Once we can assure ourselves that we're all back on the same page as to how we can meet publicly and have these discussions, then I think we should resume that, once we get there.
I do think that the end of the closing comments is a great opportunity for, if there is something that Dr. Blum can answer, or if any of the board members can answer a question that was asked during public comment, then it is an opportunity for us to be able to answer those questions. So.
And I think the last 3 meetings were a very good representation of that.
Sure, agree.
Derek, can I go?
Oh, go ahead, Derek.
No, I respect what you said, Brian, but I things are gonna get heated. Even though politics doesn't belong in school, we're still a school board, we're still a political body. So things are gonna get heated. And frankly, I'm uncomfortable with the language of until things get better, then we're gonna keep restricting this and we're gonna keep restricting that. And I don't think that's appropriate. Again, things are gonna get heated. We can deal with it if it happens. If things get too heated, we can just tell everybody to cool off. We can take a break. We can just leave it alone for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. We can, just leave each other alone, but then come back and get back to the business of the school. I really am not comfortable anymore with I don't want to say a restriction, but I think we're veering into restrictions on what people can talk about for the sake of just avoiding argument. And there's going to be arguments. We just got to get over it.
And I would say I'm all for argument. And you and I are both lawyers. We have made livings making arguments, but civil arguments.
I argue every day. I'm frankly tired of it.
Tired of arguing. But there's a way to argue and a way to be hostile. And I think we have had some better meetings and better conversations recently, and I'd like to see that continue. It is a two-way street.
I will say that there's multiple things that came up tonight that were not on the agenda. I don't remember anybody being shut down to speak, but to that end too, curriculum committee being disabled was brought up, and it was not disabled. I do want to just remind, which we've said at multiple meetings now, it is a committee of the whole. So we did have, and I don't have it with me, but a schedule of times and what would happen at what times and what would be brought to the board at those different times, and the information's still going to be put in the public library and put on display here as well.
And that was discussed in detail last week.
Yeah, the
March 1st is our next bullet.
yeah, library books, if you want. I did have, when we were back in the library, sample policies for that I had presented, and maybe now's the time to go over them. I can always recirculate them. And I had another note I wanted to address. I'm not aware, Dr. Blum, are we aware of any boys and girls sports, girls and boys sports? I mean, we just started girls wrestling, so there's, you're not aware of any of that?
No.
Thank you.
Well, you've heard me say before, I would much prefer to have no time frame, no 5 minutes. I find that burdensome for the folks who want to say something. I've had recommendations, we go to 2 minutes and 3 minutes. I would prefer people, if we're going to have a dialogue, that's one thing, but a debate, we shouldn't have. So I do like the format we're following is questions are asked. At this time, questions are answered. If we haven't answered them, please put them in writing. Every email I get, I respond to. I send an email out. I don't, now some folks don't like my answers, and that I understand that, but those are the answers that I give. I have not avoided any issue. I didn't avoid the equity issue. I'm not avoiding the biological male, biological female issue. If you ask me, I will answer it. To me, it's easier to do it when we're not yelling at each other either. And this board is great. We don't yell at each other. I've been doing this with you guys for 3 years now, and we do not yell at each other. The argument of yelling at the public, I'm opposed to. But I will have dialogue with the public. But if it becomes a debate, a raging debate, like we had at the auditorium, no, I'm going to have to shut it down. And then you run into, how do you shut it down in a civil way, and who do you allow back in? How long do you adjourn for? So I kind of like this procedure right now. If we progress where we see that everyone is treating each other as equals, then certainly I would prefer to go back to having a dialogue, but not a debate. I think when we get into debates, for instance, asking the question with the 5 board members who are running for school board, like to answer the question. Now we're into debates, we're into politics. Every board member should be able to answer any question during the comment period that the board has. So for now, I think we should stay where we're at. I don't totally like it all, but I'm willing to compromise. And maybe in the future, we can get back to where we were just 3 years ago before the pandemic, when the public routinely came in and asked us a question, and we routinely answered them. And there was no hostility and no animosity, and we respected each other. When we get back to that, and I'm not blaming one side or the other, but let's face it, we have 2 opposing sides, sometimes extremely opposed to each other. And once we get back to the point where we can talk to each other about what we think is the best thing for our children, that's what we're here for. And I'm willing to listen to anyone who's got good ideas, what's good for their children. And certainly today we received a wonderful letter from a Mrs. Kraus, and we don't put it up for public because it mentions personal things. So we don't want those questions being asked because it was very specific to her family. So no, we're not going to post all the questions we get. But Dr. Blum, if there, or Vicki, if there are frequently asked questions, I don't see why we can't have a section on the website that says these are the frequently asked questions that we know of, maybe list 10 or 12 down, and then if you have other frequently asked questions, we can add them on and maybe take some off.
We should have a link to the academic calendar on our frequently asked questions.
That's one of the, that should be real big, that link. I think we've made progress in the area of civility and civic discourse, Brian, and hopefully we'll move forward in a positive way, even though I know some people want it to get heated during political season. I do not want it to get heated during political season. So I want to see everyone be able to smile at each other, say I disagree cordially, and when we adjourn, we leave the premises in an orderly fashion. That's all I had. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.